Welcome everyone. So this topic is going to be amazing. What should I invest in like a 10-year period? What should I invest in if within 10 years I want to be able to reap those benefits? Because a lot of times, especially on this channel, I'll talk about things in like 30 years or 40 years because I'm hoping that young people will definitely look into the idea of compound interest and how it's your best friend, and you can save so little every single month if you're younger that will turn into so much. And so my goal with that is to get people excited to be able to do that, because people that are under 30 definitely aren't thinking about retirement, but by the time you hit 55 or something, you're definitely thinking about it, so it's important. Anyway, today is all about what should I invest in with like a 10-year time horizon. And this, for those of you that are new to the channel or new to this segment, I call this office hours. And that's because I'm an actual university professor. And after the lecture, I'll have students that will come into my office here and will just ask me more questions about the lecture or about homework, and we'll go a little bit deeper. And at that point, a lot of times we'll go deep enough that they'll ask me questions that they want to hear my actual opinion on. And so that's what this is. I'll take one or two of the questions that you guys have throughout the week, and I'll just make a segment where I give you my honest opinion without much research, and it's just my thoughts and what I would do and how I would do it. So for this one specifically, I definitely recommend that you want to check with a financial planner or somebody that's certified in that specifically, especially if you're closer to retirement age. You definitely need to take your thing into consideration, your situation. And for me, I'm going to generalize this off of my ideas. And in full transparency, today I went to do this video and I actually started recording, and I did about half of this video already. And for some reason, I just felt like maybe I didn't press the record button. So I went and checked, and yeah, definitely just did like 10 minutes of talking to an empty room because that camera wasn't on, baby. Anyway, the camera's on now, so let's get to it. So for this question, there's going to be two separate people that I'm talking to here. One of you is 50 or 55 years old, and you will be retiring in 10 years, or you hope to be retiring then, and you're at that age where that money is going to count, you're going to absolutely need it, and hopefully you won't have another job or something, and you're hoping that your investments up until this point would suffice at that point for you to live off of. That's one type of person. The other type of person is 20 years old, 30 years old, and they're just looking at, okay, in 10 years, I'd like to be retired. I'd like to have financial freedom. I'd like to be able to travel or just not work, really, right? And so what can I do that might help those chances? So for that first person, what you do matters more, to be honest, right? Like if you mess it up, you have a much higher risk. So a lot of people at this point traditionally will start throwing in a lot of money into bonds and into safe things like that. And I think that that's a big mistake. Now I know that especially right now, we're seeing that if your money's in the S&P 500 or something that is technically a little bit safer, it's still down 20%. And so if you had, $1 million in there and you needed that money's not worth $1 million anymore. It's worth $800,000 if it went down 20%. So it's scary to see that kind of money drop. But since we are talking about a 10-year time horizon, I still think the bulk of your money should be going into a broad index, something like the S&P 500 or VTI, or something that's a total stock market index, possibly even like a dividend fund like SCHD or VYM, something that invests in value stocks, because that's still 10 years. It's still a lot of time that it can continue to grow and you can still be accumulating. So I would still be putting the vast majority of money into that. I would just suggest that you put more money in. There's not really a magic pill for this answer. It's not any one specific thing. It's more going to be disciplined now so that you can make sure and put enough money away so that it actually is worth enough later on. The thing that I would recommend is that as you get close enough, when you do hit that like 65 or, in that age group, that's where you'd start really talking to a financial planner of some sort, and maybe that's when you'd start putting a portion of your money into bonds, something that's going to be very stable that can't drop, especially if you're going to be pulling from that money. So that's one way. The other thing that I would be looking at is that you definitely want to be maxing out your Roth IRA, because at 60, you can start pulling money from that. And so for me, I would be putting a bunch of money, as much money as you can, into the Roth IRA, and specifically in dividend ETFs like SCHD for sure, because you're not taxed on any of those dividends or any of that growth all of this time at all. And then when you do hit 60, then you can start taking dividends, all the dividends out. Maybe it's $1,000 a month or something at that point. You can take just the dividend out, totally tax-free at that point, and keep the capital, the total amount, still in there, and it's still growing until 70 or until 80. And at that point, maybe the dividends are worth $5,000 a month. I don't know. But something of that nature. I would definitely be doing that, and make sure that you do that, because taxes at that point are something that we definitely want to worry about. The other thing that I would highly recommend is looking into real estate. Getting a rental property is something that I definitely recommend, because at the time, right now, let's say you're 50. When you buy it, and if you're going to rent it out that year, you're not going to make very much money. The mortgage will be about as much as rent, or mortgage might be a little bit higher, especially with taxes and other things. So you're looking at it saying, it's not a good idea because right now I'm not going to make any money. The goal is not right now. The goal is cash flow later. And definitely 10 years from now, not only will the house price appreciate like crazy, especially with all the inflation and craziness going on, but also the actual amount that you make in cash flow, rents rise 4 to 6% every single year, whereas the mortgage stays the same. So if the rent is going up, but the mortgage is staying the same, this little cash flow piece right here is going to get bigger and bigger. And by the time 10 years has rolled around, or 15 years, that'll be a nice little chunk, a monthly paycheck that you get just for having owned that asset. You also then again own the asset, and so you can choose to sell it at some point. You can choose to hand it down to family. There's so many different things that you can do, but I would definitely recommend looking at that as an option. Number one, though, is just going to be throwing as much money as you can into the tried and true S&P 500, total stock market index, good value ETFs, things like that. That's if you're 50 or so. Now, if you're younger, 20 years old or whatever, this is where you can have a little more risk, because at 10 years from now, you hope to be able to quit your job or to live financially in that way, but you technically don't have to, right? If you hit 30, you're still able-bodied, you're still able to go to work if you really had to. So this is a good time to take a chance. And the ways that I would do that are, number one, with cryptocurrency, and I just really believe in Bitcoin and Ethereum. I don't really like most of the other coins, and I think there's a lot of scams out there, so this is one you definitely need to research. But if I was a 20-year-old, I'm 33, but if I was, 20, even now, I am investing in Bitcoin and Ethereum, but anyone under 40, I definitely suggest it. I think that it's something that I personally would do, but I'm very much okay with risk. And so if you're not ready for that to literally go to zero, then don't do it. It's not worth the headache. Anyway, it's something that I look at as, this is something that could go up 10 times or 100 times. So for me, I'm going to put a small portion of my portfolio into that. So if you're 20 years old, look at that, do some research, and then maybe that's an option. The other thing that's an even safer way to do it with a little risk is growth stuff. So growth stocks and growth ETFs. My favorite growth ETFs are VUG, SCHG, and QQQ. Growth stocks are things that things like semiconductor stocks or electric vehicle or green stocks or things like that. Tesla and TSMC or even Microsoft and Apple, those types of companies that could have the technology to just continue to just go crazy. So those are things that I would definitely be putting more money into, maybe 20% or so of your portfolio. I would also highly suggest the same thing I said to these people, which is get the bulk of your portfolio in the S&P 500 or a total stock market, because that will give you good, solid growth. It's slow, but it's steady, and it's something that you're definitely gonna want at any age. So definitely be throwing money there. And then the last thing is 100% get into real estate. If I could have told my 20-year-old self, whatever I need to do, just make it happen, I definitely would do that in a heartbeat. Just like that money is going to go somewhere. You're going to pay for rent in some way. So why not make it the rent within your own house, right? Your mortgage. Do what you have to do. I know it's a big upfront cost. I know it seems crazy. Find a crazy uncle that's willing to bet on you. Tell them that you'll pay them back on the down payment and get it going. Then go out and find 3 or 4 friends, maybe at your age, 5 or 6 friends, because who cares? I lived in a dorm that was like smaller than this office with another human being for my freshman year of college. Space is not the issue. It's just make it happen. I promise you this is huge, because in 10 years, that house will be worth way more. Your roommates will have paid off like half of the house at that point. And at that point, you could then buy another house. You could buy 2 houses. You could take a loan out against the house. You could, rent it out fully while you go out and buy out your own house. There's just so many things that unlocks when you have real estate. And it would be so great if you did it from at a 20-year-old age. That would be huge. So I definitely 100% recommend getting into real estate in some way. It doesn't need to be this shiny, big, beautiful place at all. Just get there, get the equity going, and 10 years from now, 20 years from now, you will be thanking me and thanking yourself. So those are the big places. Now, obviously, I'm probably gonna get some comments and get roasted in some way in some of my thoughts here and my opinions, especially that crypto take, I'm sure. But what I would love to hear is what your opinions are, and how would you invest and in 10 years get the most amount of benefit and the most amount of profit? The idea here is for this community to be able to help each other out. So I'd love to see some help in the comment section, and maybe all of us in 10 years will be better off for it. Thank you for the questions, and I'm looking forward to the next ones.